Hi, everybody. Welcome to Woman Up. My name's Leah and I'm joined by Sue. How are you, Sue?
I'm good, Leah. How are you? And the
Yeah,
baby?
can't complain.
The baby's getting big.
Yeah, baby's getting big, but he's good as gold and he's gorgeous. I'm very lucky.
After what you went through, you
So,
deserve a really good
yeah,
baby.
um, kind of forget about all that really. And then you, when you have a birth that doesn't go according to your plan, it is really hard.
Mm,
But I think you have to choose to move on from it and
yeah,
look at the good things and the positives. And although some of it does stick with you, but you do move on.
yeah. Otherwise,
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah,
Good.
good. We're into March now.
Yeah. It's going too quickly.
It is going too
How was it
quickly.
March? How was it March? I feel like I've just completely missed February.
Well, and January probably, because you've been
Yeah.
very busy.
Yeah, I have been quite busy.
And you got two under two.
Yeah. Why? Oh dear. Anyway,
You've
what
got to bring some kids into the world that aren't going to be captured by this ideology, that will be smart enough not to get. We need more little turfs and terms.
hmm. I think that must be how this is going to be defeated because like what's the alternative? But then maybe I'm being unfair, but I think a lot of the younger generation are falling for this. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if that's true.
It's so good when you see a young person that hasn't,
Mm,
and you just think, oh my, it gives you some confidence that they're not all being sucked into it.
mm,
But I guess those with autism, they're the ones that are the most vulnerable. But, even at those, when we did that protest outside of Queensland Parliament last
mm.
October, with those year six kids giving us the thumbs up behind their teacher's back.
And
It
their
was,
teacher was so woke.
yeah, a complete nutter nutcase.
Yeah.
But at least some of her kids, um, you know, aren't going to fall for it. And when you see things like that, it does give you hope that there are kids that aren't going to fall for it.
Mm.
But I
They
think it's
must
really
have they must
scary.
have TERF mothers then, eh?
Yeah, because that's the only way, isn't it, really? Because they're going to be exposed to it, even in daycare, is for the parents to make them resilient. You don't want them to grow up too fast, but if you don't make them resilient, they're going to be vulnerable to it. So it's really quite scary.
Even in daycare.
Mm, yeah,
I when I was researching that when we did a talk with Narissa about the daycares, I couldn't believe what I was reading,
yeah.
how
And
embedded it is.
and didn't it state to start talking to them in the baby's room or something about
Mm.
it? In the baby's room, that's indoctrination.
Mm. It's actually unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
If someone told me that and I know nothing about this, that in daycare they were talking to babies,
Yeah,
um, or like well, babies, that's what it said,
yeah,
babies.
yeah.
And it also said toddlers, so it's talking about two specific like age groups.
Yeah.
If someone told me this, I don't think I would believe it.
No, it seems just insane, isn't it? And that's why it's so hard, is because it sounds so insane.
Hmm.
It sounds like you're a conspiracy theorist, and people go, "Oh, that's complete and utter bullshit. You've lost your mind." And you go, "Because you know what you sound like as well."
I know.
And you can understand them thinking that when you tell them that I completely understand why you think this is bullshit,
Hmm.
but it's not.
Hmm. But what about the people who know what's going on and they still choose to say that it's absolutely acceptable and fine?
Yeah. But do they really understand the full impact of it?
what I will say is all of the, because you do lose friends when you come out and say, absurdities like humans can't change sex and women don't have dicks
Mm,
and lesbians don't do dick, that kind of stuff. You actually end up losing friends over it, which is mental.
mm.
But all of the friends that I've lost over it, none of them have had kids. None of them have, all of them that think that men can breastfeed, for example, none of them have actually breastfed themselves. So maybe it's because it just hasn't affected them.
But there's
They're
plenty of
going on.
people that haven't done that, that aren't sucked in
Mm,
by it. I think it's about having an open mind, listening to it and then going and researching it yourself. I mean, I did that with animal rights when I first started to learn about it. I just didn't accept it. I didn't say, oh, that's bullshit. You're crazy. I went and researched it and found out what I was being told was true.
mm.
And that's all that they need to do.
How
But
long ago was that?
in 2011, I think it was when it started. And then it took me, I think I went vegan after I started finding out about it. Didn't even give it any thought. Just one day I thought, I can't do this. I can't do this to these animals. I just went vegan. And yeah, but it took me some time while I was researching it. It was Live Export that got me interested in it.
Mm.
And, I was online with all these activists that were animal activists with Live Export. And then other issues just started popping up. And that's the thing. Don't take it at face value. Do your own research. The problem with this, though, I mean, the government lies about animals as well. They cover up for an industry, but they don't fine you for or threaten you with jail time if you talk about it. And that's what they're doing to us. If you even question it, if you talk about it, you can lose your job, you can be fined, you can go to prison. That's the difference, is you're not stopped from talking about it when you're an animal activist. And this is completely different because the government is being authoritarian and shutting us down. And the way they want to do that is to destroy your livelihood, get you the sack.
I
And
just can't imagine you ever not being vegan.
because since I've known you, I've been vegan.
Yeah.
All those years I wasn't. But when someone was vegan, though, I didn't look at them and go, oh, they're extreme. I didn't hate them. There's a lot of hatred for vegans.
Yeah, no, I don't know why. I don't really get that.
No, but I think it's because it's very confronting for people because you've never had to think about what you eat growing up. And so to change your mindset, it's too hard for a lot of people, I think. And they'd rather be offended by it and not think about it. But, you can't force other people. It's like me now, like telling everyone the world's got to go vegan. Like people would really like that are vegan, for the
Yeah, I
animals.
know.
They'd really like that. But we can't dictate how people live.
Mm.
But with gender ideology, we're being controlled and dictated to. We're being told, no, you have to believe that people can change sex. Well, we know they can't. But we're told you have to. And if you do not believe it and you start questioning it, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your house, you'll go to prison, you'll be fined, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and it runs deep. It runs deep. Why don't
Yeah.
you tell us about what you have found out about?
Yeah, just recently over the last few weeks, I've seen on social media public servants talking about a survey. It was a DEI wellness survey sent out to staff,
Diversity,
equity and
equity,
inclusion. And so the survey's being done by government departments, but the information collected will go to ACON,
and who's ACON?
AIDS Council of New South Wales, who is Australia's equivalent to Stonewall.
Hmm.
So they're collecting this information and they're giving it to ACON to manage the survey. But one of the questions is, what is your sexual orientation? So they're not asking, are you part of the LGBTIQA+? They want to know if you're heterosexual.
I couldn't believe it when I saw that.
Yeah. And they give options.
Yeah, go on.
They give, so I've been told that in the survey, it says, which of the following would best describe your sexual orientation? And you've got choices. Straight, in brackets, heterosexual, bisexual, queer, gay, lesbian, in brackets, homosexual, pansexual, asexual, a different term, or prefer not to respond.
And what's pansexual again? Does that mean?
I can't remember. There's so many of them. I'll have to look that up.
I think pansexual is you're interested in everyone. So it's bisexual, basically.
But there must be some difference, though. Because
see, I'm surprised that bisexual is still a thing. Because bi implies two of.
Yeah.
So two sexes.
Yeah, it does.
Both men and women.
Yes. Yes. So interesting. People have concerns with this survey. It says it's voluntary, but then there's mandatory questions in it. So how voluntary is it? And when I was with government, I actually ran the privacy area of Queensland for a government department. So I've got a background in privacy. And it was one of the things I loved was privacy. I loved that job. And so I knew that you can only ask questions of your employees if it's to do with the functions of the agency. This falls outside of that scope. It's got nothing to do with how you perform your job. Your sexuality has got nothing to do with it. So, and there's the Australian privacy principles, and in it, it outlines like the collection of data and all this sort of thing, or collection of information. And APP3 is about the collection of data. And so I revisited the privacy principles because it's been a while since I was in privacy, but it hasn't changed. And it says must not collect personal information unless the information is reasonably necessary for or directly related to one or more of the entity's functions or activities. So tell me, how does your sexual orientation come into it?
Yeah. So why are they trying to find out what people's sexual orientation is?
Yeah. Are there too many heterosexuals in the government, perhaps? You know, and even when they say prefer not to respond, that is still profiling an employee. And that it says it's anonymous. But from what I've heard, is there's enough questions in that survey to actually identify most staff. And to breach privacy, you do not have to name someone. You just have to give enough information where that person can be identified. That's a breach of privacy.
So did this questionnaire say why it was collecting?
No. It's just apparently, yeah. And that's another thing. They have to provide the purpose as to for why it's being collected. So it's going to ACON, and they're going to de-identify the data and give it back to the organisation. This is ACON. And then I was...
And how many people did that go out to?
There's 150,000 public servants, but I'm not sure how widely spread it's been. But if it's an ACON survey, you can bet that probably most, if not all, government departments have issued this survey to staff. And so another question was, what are your personal pronouns? Am I a person of faith, religious beliefs? So when have we been allowed to ask whether or not you hold religious beliefs?
Yeah.
And I believe there are more than two genders.
That's a question.
Yeah, and then you've got an
That's
option, agree,
mental.
strongly agree. So what
Yeah.
they are doing is profiling staff members. And, you know, if it was anonymous, they'd ask what state you're in. That's about it, and maybe age group. But this goes way beyond that. There's so much information on each employee that you could perhaps not identify all of them, but most of them, I would say. And if they saw that you were, there are other questions apparently in it as well, asking about, do you believe in diversity, equity and inclusion, as in, do you believe that I reckon it's profiling employees, and if they find people that oppose it, there'll be further indoctrination, because they don't say what purpose this survey is for.
Mm.
So what purpose could it be? Why are they asking these questions? It's got nothing to do with the role they play.
Mm. I was just gobsmacked by that.
I'm just shocked. I'm completely and utterly shocked that the government now thinks it's appropriate to ask every staff member what sexual orientation. So, in other words, who are they sleeping with? It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
God, how has it come to this? Like,
it's been bad enough state by state, hasn't it? It's like the federal government's been fairly, you know, we know they've been indoctrinating staff because the government has signed up to ACON and the, what is it, Australian Workplace Equity Index. So what happens, I believe, is if they get a certain number of staff that fill out the survey, they get points, the AWEI points, and organisations aspire to getting these points, so they get these awards, ACON awards. So the government's wanting these awards from ACON. Like, who's running the government?
God. And I just heard that they've been given a grant for family violence.
Yeah.
But it would now be considered violent to like misgender your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that too, something like $2.4 million or something.
Yeah.
But they get so much money. So, yeah, so this is the latest, the Australian government.
So what's your opinion on why they're collecting that data? Because to me, that's insane.
It is insane. I can only think that they are profiling employees to find out if there's any dissent. And because apparently since late last year, there's been a constant stream of training modules and, you know, just hammering employees with DEI. So it's a form of indoctrination. I can't think of any other reason than to find out who is a problem. The thing is, because like I spent 32 years in government, and they can say a survey is voluntary, but you get hammered keep getting hammered until you complete it, even though it's voluntary.
Right.
So, you know, but they didn't say it's voluntary. They said they were invited to complete this survey. Is that voluntary? You can be invited to something, but it's mandatory. I think they're just profiling employees. And I don't think they ran this past the privacy area at all to get approval for it. But then I have heard that they're saying that under DEI, they don't need to abide by the law.
That doesn't surprise me.
But there'd have to be exemptions within the law that privacy doesn't apply if it's in relation to diversity, equity and inclusion. They can't just say, oh, it's DEI, it doesn't matter. There's got to be an exemption in the law. And I can't imagine if this was run through any privacy area in government that the people in privacy would have said, oh, that's fine. They would have gone. Because when I first heard about it, having the experience in privacy, I was just completely and utterly shocked. And I thought it's illegal to ask these questions, and they can say, oh, it's implied consent because they filled out the questionnaire. But even still, it's not legal to ask the questions in the first place. It doesn't matter if there's implied consent. You should not be asking these questions. It's got nothing to do with how the government agency functions. Your sexual orientation doesn't make a difference about how you do your job. So they're in breach of the APP3.
So do you think anything will come of it?
Who knows? You know how we always go, oh, this is going to blow it out of the water. And then nothing happens. So, and obviously there's a lot of talk by public servants around the track. It's being discussed. People aren't happy. But does the government care? They need to be called on it, definitely. And I'd like an explanation how they can allow this, how the government can allow their employees to be asked what sexual orientation they are. I wonder if the politicians have all been asked what their sexual orientation is. Would Anthony Albanese, like we know he's, just got engaged, so we know that he's heterosexual, but he could be bisexual. How are we to know?
Well, yeah, or he could be an AGP.
Yeah, well, that's right. So has he been asked what his sexual orientation? You can't just assume that he's heterosexual.
And there's plenty of gay men that get married to women.
That's right. Yeah.
So
if this has been given to public servants, it should be given to the politicians. They should be made to fill out this exact same questionnaire. Maybe they have. Who knows?
So would there be a punishment if you didn't fill it out then?
Well, I think the punishment is that they've profiled you and you're on their list.
Yeah, true.
Because even if you write, because even with that thing about the sexual orientation and it's got prefer not to respond, that is still profiling someone. Because if you're LGBTIQ plus, well, not LGB, I'm sick of including them. It's the TIQ plus.
Yeah.
If you prefer not to respond, then you're not wearing your sexuality on your sleeve.
There's no TIQ plus who wouldn't respond. I mean,
no.
They're going to tell you about it, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what they say with vegans. How do you know someone? And they'll tell you about it.
I didn't want to say.
Well, my excuse is you have to because you can't consume animal products.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So you can't go to a restaurant and not tell them you're vegan because then you're going to get served animal products. So you have to. It's not like that for the TIQA plus. They love everyone to know because we're all, have to adore them. They're up there, we're down here. We're just the scummy ones that believe that there are only two sexes.
The women who say no.
Yeah. So I honestly think it's profiling staff. Whether or not they're profiling staff, I don't know whether or not they're wanting to promote the TIQA plus into leadership positions, which will just affect, because what I hear in the government is they've got the DEI, support people or something. So people are being, it's truly embedded because the unions are completely and utterly captured. So everything's about LGBT. There I go again. I've got to stop saying LGBT, TIQA plus, everything is about them. They're the most oppressed minority. Even with domestic violence, it's worse than people that believe there are two sexes. Everything is worse for the TIQA plus when the whole world is, lapping at their feet of how wonderful they are and everything. Now, apparently they've extended the list of the pronouns as well today. I saw. Yeah, there's more pronouns.
Go on.
I can't. One was pixie or pixel. Pixel.
I think so.
But I just saw it on. I think it's Rita Panahi from Sky News. She
Oh,
does
yeah.
that weekly thing, lefties that have gone mad or something. And
Yeah.
it's there, and there's this strange-looking woman, and she's just, saying what all these new pronouns are, and it just goes. You just think, oh my God, doesn't really sink in, because you think, how are you supposed to know their pronouns? There's, what is it, 112 genders.
How are they coming up with these numbers? These people are insane.
And it all started
Oh.
because the LGB Alliance, watching their YouTube footage from their conferences each year. And I watched it in 22 and I've watched it in 23. But in 2022, they had these women on, and they found out where all these genders came from, these 112 genders. And it came from teenage girls on Tumblr. They made them up.
Yeah.
So,
Tumblr has a lot to answer for.
yeah. So that's where it all came from, teenage girls. And they've just taken all these genders and run with them as if they're real, and they're not.
But where did they get the idea from? I mean,
Disturbed young girls who just were in a fantasy, a group of autistic girls who just felt like they didn't fit and just made up their own language. It's really sad that these kids feel that way. Really sad. And I found out today that Jane Fonda supports all this bullshit.
oh, for God's sake.
I've always had so much respect for her advocacy and everything, and today I found out that she's captured by it.
How did you find that out?
I was watching
Did you
Grace
talk to her on the phone?
No, I was watching Grace and Frankie, and
Yeah.
and I've watched that a few times, and I went on to Apple TV, and there's this, I think it's called You. And there's these different celebrities, and these people tell them how they've positively affected their life. And I thought, oh, Jane Fonda's here. I think the world of Jane Fonda. She's a fantastic actress and all this. I love Grace and Frankie. And so I watched it, and they were talking about her TED talk that she did. It's 12 years old, and she's talking about there's 3 phases in life or something. So people used to die by the time they were 60, they used to die, but now we've got this whole other half lifetime that we have to live, and we're not irrelevant, that sort of thing. And so I thought, I wonder what her attitude is on gender ideology. So I Googled it. The worst thing I could have ever have done.
Oh, no.
I was heartbroken.
And what did it say? Like,
she was talking from 2022 about, trans kids and how wonderful the world is for them now, and, just this rave about how fantastic, LGBTIQA. So, and I'm thinking, so she supports the mutilation and medicalisation of kids.
Since 2022, more than 400 bills have been introduced across the country attacking the rights of LGBTQ plus youth. What you may not know is that we've defeated the majority of them. That's because LGBTQ plus youth are speaking out and fighting back in record numbers. Organizations like It Gets Better are working directly with the LGBTQ plus kids to empower and uplift them, to connect them to the support systems and resources that they need to speak out and fight for the causes they're passionate about, not just LGBTQ plus and civil rights, but for reproductive rights, mental health, climate justice, gun control. They're all intertwined. So join me, will you? This month and every month in supporting our queer youth. Pledge your support by visiting itgetsbetter.org/pledge. Let's make sure the next generation of activists and leaders feel better equipped to take on the fight. Thanks.
And I just thought, no, I cannot. She's gone from way up there to way down there.
yeah, it ruins it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it ruins it.
this is like, you know, people with lots of money. We've always said it's never going to affect them unless, of course, they have a child. But they think it's trendy though, because we've seen a lot of celebrities with kids and
How could this, how could you want your child to be in and out of hospital on drugs?
yeah, I
It
don't like that.
literally tied to the medical industry for the rest of their life. How
Yeah.
could you want that?
It really is insane and something that they will live to regret, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jane Fonda, I wish I'd never looked it up. I think anyone with half a brain would understand what's going. By now, they'd have to understand.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be that ignorant of it.
Mm, I agree.
So I can't watch Grace and Frankie anymore
Oh no.
because it's in my head that she's captured.
Yeah.
It's something
You
like
should be able to, you should be able to separate it, but it's hard.
it is. It really is. Yeah.
I saw a really good video of Morrissey. Do you know the singer Morrissey?
Yeah.
And he was talking about he's got Jermaine Greer on his drum kit.
I have to mention this every single night, but you see Jermaine Greer on our drumhead, and she's a big hero, you see, of mine. But she was banished. She was banished in England because she said a man is male and a woman is female. Oh my God! So she was given her marching orders. She was thrown out of the country, and she's probably here tonight, serving behind the bar. You never know.
Yeah, and Dr. Phil now. Have you seen that? Because he was sort of
But what's taking these people so long?
probably been bitten. He probably said something that they thought was out of line and he got attacked, I would say, because he was never really down on gender critical people, but he was platforming them.
Yeah.
And now, like, was it Joe Rogan he spoke with? And now he's completely and utterly peaked, as we say.
Yeah.
It's interesting they choose words like gender affirming care. You know, that's interesting that they call it that, but really what they're talking about is hormonal therapy or sex reassignment surgery on children. And in fairness, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Endocrine Society, or whatever the exact name of that is, all of the major medical associations have signed off on this, Joe. They've signed off on it. And I have never seen those organizations sign off on anything with less information as to whether or not it does long-term harm of anything in my life. And when I ask about that, when I bring that up, then they immediately label you as transphobic.
And now he's the guru. All these people that have been doing it for, you know, like I've done 2 years.
Blokes that come along and yeah, it is. I can see it. The
Yeah.
women that have been doing work for years, literally decades.
Yes, that's right.
Dr. Phil comes along after 5 minutes and he's like everywhere. I mean, look, at least it's bringing it to more people's attention.
Yeah, and people that really respect him will listen to what he has to say. So, you know, to have him speaking out like that, it is amazing. It really is amazing. And
Yeah.
he, in his way, which he does, he can talk about it and people won't get offended by it. They'll listen to him, where other people will say it and they just will shut down. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good that like it's like the breastfeeding, the men breastfeeding thing.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it and I hate even thinking about it. It's so disgusting.
You must really think about it all the time, though, now that you're breastfeeding your
Yeah,
son.
well, it kind of went out and now it's back in, like, it's everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
And because obviously I am breastfeeding a baby at the minute, it just makes me so fucking angry.
Yeah.
it's too much to think about sometimes, because it just gets me so angry. Think of
Yeah.
the hours and the pain
Yeah.
and the nights where you have to wake up in the middle of the night, obviously. And there are really good things about it, and it's wonderful and amazing. It's the best thing you can do for your baby, don't get me wrong. But it's such a commitment to breastfeed a baby. And then you see that a man can do it better than a woman. You know, the milk is better
Yeah.
than a woman could ever produce.
That is just
Fuck off. Just fuck off. How are people falling for this?
I know.
How
Anyone
are people falling for it?
with half a brain would realise this is a male body.
Normal,
Can't produce.
who I thought were intelligent people, have fallen for this hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. And so,
This is paedophilia.
yeah, it is.
This is so disgusting. It's paedophilia.
Yeah.
There's actually a name for it. It's called lactophilia.
Oh, really?
Lactophilia is the fetishization of breastfeeding.
And there are men online that will say that, you know, it gives them a sexual rush to have a baby on their nipple. And
Yeah.
you're using your child to sexually arouse you. Is there anything more disgusting than that?
Well, no, there's not.
It's just a complete and utter disgrace.
Mm.
You know, and when you see them being open about it being a sexual rush.
Well, there was an article in 2017 written by a man who literally said that he had a sexual kick out when he first breastfed. He didn't breastfeed anyone, but when he first breastfed his daughter, he said, and it just makes me so angry. Like, he's taken that away from the mother of the baby.
Yeah.
He took the baby as soon as it was born in a hospital. So there was doctors and nurses facilitating this. He took the baby away and put the baby on his nipple and tried to feed the baby. How are normal, everyday people falling for this on one hand? And how are doctors facilitating this?
A lot of them, they are forced to, with doctors and
I
nurses.
just don't know how. I just wouldn't be able to be forced. I just couldn't be forced to do that.
No. That's like if I was in government now, I'd be a troublemaker. They'd be probably kicking my ass out the door.
Yeah, you wouldn't last 2 minutes, would you?
Yeah. No, because I was a union delegate for, you know, many years when I was in government as well. But there would be no way that I could remain silent on it. So in a way, it's good that I'm retired because I would have got the sack by now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you probably would.
Yeah, but this breastfeeding, you just see.
There's now saying that there's research coming out to say that the milk is not just as good, but sometimes even better than mother's milk.
It's not possible. It's just not possible. They haven't carried the baby. They've got a male baby, a male body. It doesn't produce mother's milk. It's impossible for it to be as good or better. And there's just no, but, you know, they make better women than women. How many times do you hear that?
Mm.
So everything they do is better. They are better women. Everything they do is better than what women do. We can't dress, you know, they hate the way we dress. They hate the way we look because they're all hypersexualized. They dress like they're prostitute, like not all of them do. It's a bit unfair to say
most of them do.
Most of them do.
If one doesn't, you're like, wow, you're not.
Yeah.
They stick out if they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but for people to fall for it, especially women that have given birth, to actually fall for it is just unbelievable. There's just, you would think if anything would pique them, it would be men saying they're breastfeeding their babies, wouldn't you? You think it would be, if anything, this would have to make women go, no.
This is like the frog in the boiling water analogy, isn't it? It's like it's just been drip fed into society. Firstly, you know, call Bruce Jenner a she.
Yeah.
And and now this.
Yeah.
It's like a very slow drip feeding of perversion.
Yeah. The female politicians that support this. Now, we've already seen there's been a couple of men that are seeking pre-selection as a woman into political parties to run at the next federal election. So if they think they're going to be exempt, they're kidding themselves, because the government can still have their quota of women, but they'll be men identifying as women. So while they're sitting back and supporting this absolute bullshit, if they think targets they are. So, and then when the quota of women are actually men, what's going to happen to us? There's no representation. There won't be anyone like Claire Chandler to get up and speak on our behalf. You know, we're going to have men that identify as women speaking up on women's issues. They'll just take everything. How long before women don't get the vote? I remember I said that in 2022 and people going, oh, that's just ridiculous. But is it?
Nothing's ridiculous. Men can breastfeed. Nothing is ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, nothing is off the table anymore.
They can always get their quota of women. It's just going to be a woman with a penis.
Mm.
I'll still say we've got our quota of women. And there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
We're sitting watching our house on fire.
Mm.
As Greta Thunberg would say about climate change, our house is on fire.
Mm.
Well, our house is on fire and we've got to do something about it.
Mm. Well, we are trying, aren't we?
But we need more. People have to speak out. You know,
I just
we
can't believe the level of capture so quickly.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, you've got literally NHS in the UK saying that it's about this breastfeeding shit.
Yeah.
You've got the Australian Breastfeeding Association over here saying, yeah, all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are we meant to trust any medical professionals ever again? Because I don't.
I trust a medical professional who's gender critical.
And how many are? Maybe that should be the question that we ask. Anyone that wants to take our money to give us healthcare.
But we've done how much outreach? We know the level of support they don't have. That's got to be reflected in the medical industry. It's all run by fear. People are afraid. So, you know, and you threaten someone's livelihood. Look what they've done to Gillian Spencer. If that hasn't sent a message to Queensland doctors and nurses to shut your mouth, that's what they do.
Mm.
And, you know, and to Gillian's credit, she's basically just told them to shove it where the sun don't shine. She's not going to roll over and basically sell her soul. And she hasn't.
Surely too many people know about what's going on now. I mean, it's like they can't hold it back anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, most people now know what an autogynephile is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they do.
And most of these blokes are getting off on what they're doing. They're
so overt. They don't hide it. That's what amazes me is they're so overt with their behaviour on Twitter.
They don't have to hide it. There's no shame. There's absolutely no shame in enacting your fetish in public.
And there's that clip of a man, it's in the UK, and he's dressed as a little girl and he's in that, you've seen that, and he's sucking on the bottle and he's dressed up as a little, and that's what he wants to do, is shock people. And he's got his phone up filming himself drinking out of a baby's bottle and making really loud sucking noises like a baby does. It's just revolting.
There's nothing that they won't take and use as a cheap
Yeah.
turn on for themselves. They're absolutely addicted to porn.
Yeah.
There's just, these men are not men that we want in our spaces. Like, you're opening the door to the very worst kind of man.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And then there was that, did you see was it the UK where this man, like people got upset because he killed someone, but the headlines are that he killed a cat. He put a live cat in a blender. And it's been reported that he's a woman.
A woman has been found guilty of murdering an individual in Oxford months after she filmed herself killing a cat. Scarlett Blake has been sentenced to life. The minimum term is yet to be revealed in court, but she has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 24 years. Some of the features that have resulted in that term are significant degree of premeditation, the judge said, substantial planning, and it was shown that you were looking for someone vulnerable, the court said. In the mitigation at the sentencing, the judge had said that she was 23 at the time of the offence, but Scarlett Blake jailed for life with a minimum term of 24 years. We'll get more detail on that very shortly.
And that crime has been reported as a woman's crime.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way he killed the cat, he put the cat in a blender.
Yeah.
And serial killers always start off killing animals. The serial killer register, I was told this maybe 20 odd years ago by someone that worked in the Queensland Government, that when there's repeat offenders with animal cruelty, they keep an eye on them because animal cruelty leads to murder. You know, yeah, and the worst, and that's J.K. Rowling came out and said,
I'm sick of this shit.
yeah, she said that, didn't she? She's sick of this shit. These are not our crimes. Yeah.
And anyone who disagrees with that is clinically insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is an escalation with these men in more ways than one. And with the breastfeeding thing, I was listening to Genevieve Gluck, and she was saying how that's not the beginning of their perversion. That's like the end. They've done a lot of things to get up to that point.
Yeah.
To then start attempting to breastfeed a baby.
Yeah.
Like, these men are dangerous.
Yeah, they are.
Shouldn't be allowed around women, let alone children.
Yeah.
And the way they coerce the women who they have babies with to let them do this.
Yeah.
I'd love to speak to a woman.
Yeah, how could you allow that, your own child? It just...
I think that these men are very manipulative, and they also will probably pick women who they know that they can manipulate. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, if it was true that men could produce milk as good or if not better than a woman's milk, then why aren't men helped to breastfeed babies to help the wives out? Because I'd actually quite like a full night of sleep.
Yeah. I imagine you would.
Get George on the estrogen.
I'm sure I'd be happy about that. Anyone with a brain would understand that a male body is not capable of producing mother's milk. And, you know, the whole pregnancy.
I just can't believe it. I just find it all, for me, the men breastfeeding thing is the worst of this whole, everything that's going on.
It just shows you how low they will go. And I was listening to Edie and Kit on the new episode of the Dollhouse, and they were talking about, you know, men's sexual fetishes. There's a poo fetish.
Did you not know that, Sue?
No, I didn't. I knew there was the urine fetish. Now there's a fetish. And then I was watching Kelly J recently, and she was talking about some men like having their penis on a cheese grater.
Yeah, I've heard of that one as well.
I thought that can't be true.
Yeah.
And so I looked into it. It is.
Basically, if you can imagine it in your head, there's a man out there with that fetish.
Oh my God. I just know too much about fetishes, things I never wanted to know.
I know. Oh, men are disgusting.
Yeah, thanks, Kitten Edie. Oh, I was oblivious to that one.
Yeah. I don't know what we're gonna do. I just now more and more people are talking about this. Hopefully it's gonna come to an end sooner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, send the asteroid.
Yeah, I agree. I've
Mm.
got this friend, every time I post something, ridiculous, it's true, but it's ridiculous. And her response is just a different photo of an asteroid. And I just think, yeah,
Yeah.
release the animals from their misery, now release humans from this, and nature retaliates. Nature will always retaliate.
You can't mess around with nature and get away with it. You just can't.
Mother Nature.
It might sound old-fashioned, but nature is powerful.
Yeah,
Nature is so powerful.
yeah, yeah. You mess around with it, there's going to be karma.
Yeah.
And it's Mother Nature. Nature is a woman.
Yeah. Of course.
Women don't put up with bullshit.
Like the babies. Come on, you're now coming for babies.
I know. But your baby is exceptional. I cannot believe that this is his 3rd episode. Or
He's
4.
such a good boy.
3 or 4.
3.
3.
Unfortunately, he has to be with me because he's just I'll be able to hear him crying, and when you can hear your baby crying, it's just like, it's fresh hell
Yeah.
when you're in a different room.
Is there anything cuter than hearing baby noises
Yeah.
coming from men?
Oh,
Baby gurgling are revolting. They will never replicate the sound of a baby.
yeah, well, it might have picked up a few burps. I'm not sure, but
I can hear him gurgling, but that's about it. But that's
okay. Oh, I hope it's not too distracting.
no, it's not.
All
It's
right,
a relaxing sound.
okay. Until next time, we'll have more bad
Mad-
news.
Madness, absolute madness.
How can it get worse than men breastfeeding? I don't think it can, but we'll see.
Yeah, you'd like to think, could there be anything worse? But could there?
This is rock bottom for society, and I'm just never going to forget this. If this does get better, this period of time is just so shameful.
It is.
Just so fucking absurd.
And we will never forget those politicians that have pushed it. Never, ever.
Yeah.
They
Anyone.
will be forgotten for what they've done to the women and girls and gay men, because gay men have suffered through this as well. So, and parents of kids that have transitioned, it's just horrible to watch their kids be sucked into this cult.
There's so many layers to it.
Yeah. Yep. And the vulnerable ones are the babies and the young kids.
Yeah.
But the man to have their own baby used as a prop for a sexual fetish.
Because it goes on. You know that there are paedophiles in the world, but you don't expect it to be sanctioned and encouraged by the very people that should be there to protect the kids and the women. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah. But
at least your kids are safe, and there are women like you that, like Narissa, so many women that have got young kids, those be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope so. They're never getting on the internet, and my daughter is never having a boyfriend.
Never going to school,
Never leaving the house.
Put them in a bubble.
Yeah. That's normal, isn't it? It's normal.
Well, you have to, basically, don't you? How do you protect them from the world?
Well, you can't protect them from the world, but you can give them a sense of feeling good about themselves.
Yeah. That they can be whoever they want. They don't need to change their body.
Yeah. self-confidence, give them self-confidence, try and make them learn how to be
They're,
outgoing,
yeah,
grounded people who don't feel like they have to latch onto this kind of destructive movement
yeah.
that tells them that they have to change their body surgically.
Did you see that Malcolm Roberts, when he was in the Senate and he was talking to the sex commissioner? You seen that footage?
How many letters after LGB does the Commission recognise?
We use a range of terms to refer to the communities. Sometimes we would refer to LGBTQIA+, because of the ways in which people refer to themselves. We also use the terms that are referred to in international discussions, which is sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and SC, which for the moment escapes me, but it's another term that's used at an international level.
Okay, thank you. In the Human Rights Commission submission for Tickle and Giggle, apparently the Commission has argued sex is not a biological concept, nor does it refer to male or female. Is that correct?
In our submissions, as in the Sex Discrimination Act itself, the terms man, woman and sex are not defined. We refer to the understanding of woman, which can be both the sex that is identified at birth, but also through identification through birth certificates at all state and territory levels. A person can change their recognised sex through the birth certificate recognition.
So the Human Rights Commission believes that sex can be changed after birth?
That is recognised in law around all of the states and territories in Australia.
Sex is not binary, limited to male or female? Another intervention?
That is a discussion that is an argument that will occur at the federal court, the meanings of the words female, man, woman and sex.
To be considered female, it just needs to say female on a birth certificate, which a male can do at any stage of life. That's correct? No, that's your view?
No, that's not the view of the Commission. The submissions that we have made in the federal court and will argue when it comes to the full hearing of the case, we'll be looking at how that is understood within the Sex Discrimination Act and the meaning that is ascribed. And as I've referred to, both includes for man or woman the sex that you are identified with at birth, but also can be changed through the process of altering or be recognised through the process of altering your birth certificate.
Then I'm quoting here, at least as early as the 1990s, it has been accepted that sex is changeable, end of quote. What happened before the 1990s?
It was not recognised in law.
The words female and woman include men who claim to be women. You've validated that. Do you really believe these submissions are really in line with the biological reality of sex and with most of Australians' views? I take it you don't, but that's the way the law sees it.
My role as the Sex Discrimination Commissioner is to apply the Sex Discrimination Act and to intervene to assist the Australian community to achieve gender equality and also to achieve the rights of the LGBTQI+ community. So that is a part of our role as acting as friend of the court in this case.
What changed in 1990?
I think that there was a growing understanding at an international level and also domestically of the range of ways in which people express their sexuality and also their gender identity.
So this is about expression, not science or body.
I think it's probably a combination. Bodies haven't changed, no.
No. Are you aware that sex operations, I'm told, offer only two options, male and female?
I can't help you with that question, Senator.
To me, it seems like this is supporting an attack on family, and I recognise that there can be same-sex couples having a perfectly good family, so I'm not criticising that, but this is breaking up the family. You said it came from overseas, internationally. Broader Australians don't seem to see this as an issue. Why are we spending so much time on it?
You're the one spending time on it.
Correct. Because so many people are now concerned, Senator Chisholm, including Queenslanders.
I think there are many people in the community for whom these are important issues, and it's important that we can discuss them. But for many in the communities of LGBTQI+, they experience severe discrimination, and so we need to ensure that everyone in our community can experience the full range of human rights.
Thank you very much, Chair.
But yeah, brilliant. Well done, One Nation. Never thought
Yeah.
I'd say that, but yeah.
There's a lot of things you thought you'd never say,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but you'll never eat a steak again.
No, nothing would ever convince. I've never regretted, I think it's either 12 or 13 years, I've never regretted for a minute going vegan. I have no regrets. But to think of eating a steak, it makes me feel sick. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
there you go, everyone, go vegan.
And I've regretted gender identity ever since I learned
Yeah. I
there's
know.
nothing about it I can accept. Nothing.
No,
There's no compromise.
no compromise. No compromise.
No, not at all.
Women need to learn, the ones that are going along with this shit. All you're doing is propping up men's perversions. That's all you're doing.
And also, if you call them as a female, you give them an inch, they take a mile. They just want more and more and more and more. And this kindness has got us to where we are now.
Yeah.
Because when I first started getting involved, going to the IWD Speaker's Corner back in 2022, and there were signs, men can never be women, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a bit unkind. I'm not sure. I don't want to insult them. Months later, nah, get out that course. But that was
Extremist.
But that was my first reaction. Oh, that's a bit unkind.
Yeah, because you've been conditioned to think that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because, none of us care about how anyone wants to identify. But because we were kind, now we have men telling us they're better women and they've got all our rights. And so can't be kind. So you just can't ever refer to any man who's delirious and thinks he's a woman and refer to him as a woman.
No, I agree.
That's won't be where it stops.
Yeah, because, the thin end, that's the thin end of the wedge. And on the other side is a man breastfeeding a baby.
Yeah. Well, you better tell your husband that he's got to go on estrogen.
I want a good night's sleep, Sue. I'm not joking. So
Yeah. I know. When's the last time you had a good night's sleep?
About 4 years ago, before I had any kids. Anyway, so see you next time then.
Yep. Thanks for
All
watching.
right, then.
Bye.
Bye.